Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
All right, give everybody a chance to settle in here. You good, sir?
Yeah, I'm great.
All right. He's good. So here we go. Ira Thor on behalf of the NCAA. This is the press conference for the heavyweight, the 285-pound championship. The second seed, Wyatt Hendrickson of Oklahoma State, with a 5-4 victory over the number 1 seed, Gable Steveson of Minnesota. In doing so, Wyatt wins his first national championship. Fifth-year senior out of Newton, Kansas, finishes the year 30-0, his 130th career victory, and he ends a 73-match winning streak for the two-time national champion Steveson in winning this title 5-4 today. Wyatt, congratulations. You've had a lot of time now to let the emotions settle in, so I would love to get an opening statement from you.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a couple more days before the emotions settle down. But first, I just want to thank my family. I want to thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for blessing me. You know, just that last shot, I was in on that leg, and there was a little extra push behind me that helped me get that takedown. And I don't think that was by chance. You know, the beginning of the week, Brandon Mason, our doctor, he was, we went to Life Church, and he was like, "Hey guys, it's a great sermon." And I was listening to the sermon, and it was talking about David and Goliath, and David had a vision of victory before he stepped out on the mat, and I kind of carried that with me all week. You know, even though he went after Goliath and everyone was like, "This can't be done," he had the mindset of a champion. He had a vision of victory, and so leading up to this tournament, I knew that my head had to be in the right place if I wanted to end up on top. And you know, going out there, I was courageous, and my strength it worked out. You know, I wrestled that match. I was patient. I went in with the right mindset, and off the bat, I was like, "This isn't going to be an easy match." You know, I right off the beginning, it was scrambles. I didn't want to concede any points, and that's kind of the mindset I had to have, was to act like I wanted to be a champion and wrestle like I wanted to be a champion. And so, he took me down once, but I took him down when it mattered.
All right, we will open up the floor for questions for our champion. Please raise your hand. Microphone will come to you. State your name and the outlet you represent.
Marcus Trevino, Stillwater News Press. Wyatt, what were those 15 or so seconds like when you had to write them out?
Ooh, my arms have never felt so strong. All I know is I kind of felt when I got that takedown, he kind of gave that little second to relax, and I took advantage of that. And I don't know if I had a claw and a ride, but I was just like, I was looking at the clock, and I'm like, I was just squeezing him. I made up my mind. I was like, if he did stand up, I didn't want to lock my hands. And I was like, well, I don't want to get a locked hands call, but I was squeezing. And I was like, if he stands up, I'm just going to lock it and pick him up and just hold him in the air for the last couple seconds, because I'm like, I have made it this far, and I knew I was going to win this match. So I don't care if I had to rip my arms off squeezing him. And I was like, I am holding this man down and winning this match.
Question from Kyle.
Kyle Klingman, Flow Wrestling. How much did your time at Air Force lead into this, and when will you start your service with Air Force after this time at Oklahoma State?
Absolutely. I mean, the last couple of years, you see me wrestle, and I think the Air Force Academy, Coach Barber, Coach Joe Johnston, Coach Heilman, Coach Scotty Boykin, all those guys kind of helped build my foundation, along with my coaches when I was a kid, Coach Matt Treester and my father, Todd Hendrickson. And to answer that question, I'm serving actively right now. I'm in the WCAP, the World Class Athlete Program. I was very honored that they let me use this last year of eligibility on my journey to being a 2028 Olympic champion. And so it's a 1-for-1 though. So for every year I'm in WCAP, I'll incur an additional year of service to make sure I'm still getting those 5 years of operational service, giving back to you guys and serving this great country. Obviously, I'm representing the Air Force right now, but I'm going to continue my wrestling career for the next 3 years.
Question from the second row.
Scott Wright with the Oklahoma. Wyatt, when did the idea for the American flag come, and what did it mean to have that both at the beginning and the end?
Yeah, I mean, from the very beginning, I think it's more than wrestling, and I think trying to portray that and give the image of that is important. And wrestling, we're so honored that we live in a free country, and we're able to come gather in these events and do what we love and be able to receive those support while we're wrestling on that mat. So I just like to bring that energy into the arena, that we're all on one team at the end of the day. Obviously, we're going head to head in here, but iron sharpens iron. At the end of the day, when we go and go to the Olympics or whatever we have to do, we're all one team in the end.
Question from Gary in the front row.
You spoke the other day about Los Angeles and said, you don't care who you wrestle, that you have a goal to be an Olympic champion. And to be an Olympic champion, you probably have to beat some Olympic champions. You did that today. Just talk about the mindset where you can put yourself in a position to beat this Olympic champion and many others maybe ahead of you, right?
Yeah, I think it's just you never rise to the level of your expectations. You fall to the level of your training. And I've been asked early in the season when I was only wrestling a minute or two because I was getting some pins. They were like, "Hey, are you worried if you ever have to wrestle a full match?" And I said, "Absolutely not," because in the training room, I'm training as if it's going to be a war out there, a 7-minute match every single time. And I think when I go out there, even if I'm not on my best day, but I mean today I wrestled pretty freaking good today. So, but even on some of those days, it's just kind of having that confidence and that attitude when you go out there, that mentality that you want to be a champion. And I think you could see that from the very get-go. I wasn't out there to concede points. I was out there to get points and win that match, and I did.
Another question from Kyle.
You won a U23 World Championship. I think you got injured, and then you got teched in the All-Star Classic. How did you make the adjustments from that point going forward to get to this moment where you're knocking off an Olympic gold medalist?
Yeah, I think it's really important to, obviously look at what you did good, but look at what you did bad. And I think I've always been a great wrestler, but I really think the biggest thing that kind of changed was my mentality, to be honest with you. Let's go back to that match I just wrestled. If I wasn't going out there, if I was just wrestling not to lose versus wrestling to win, maybe in those scrambles I would have conceded a little bit early. But my mindset and my attitude now is kind of developed, and you just got to believe in yourself. And in times like this, when there's 18,000 people trying to watch you wrestle, and you're going up against an Olympic champion, 2-time national champion, even the semifinals, a national champion, it's just important to, the match is won before you step on the mat. He who thinks he can, he who thinks he can't, they're both usually right. And I said this yesterday, and Coach Taylor, he told us the person that wins the national championship doesn't matter who you are, it's the person that wins 5 matches. And I truly believe that I'm going to win every single match at this tournament. And I took it match by match, period by period, minute by minute, second by second. Those last 10 seconds, 15 seconds mattered, and I made it happen.
Next question, Wyatt, is from the back left of the room.
Wyatt, Brian Van Clay, Win Magazine. Can you talk about going from the Air Force Academy to an extremely tradition-rich school like Oklahoma State, having that contingent of fan support, and then obviously, I'm sure you felt the arena's support and just the energy and momentum behind you going against Stevenson as a 2-time champ. Can you just talk about balancing that and then the nerves of being on the NCAA championship raised mat?
Yeah, I think it's awesome to have such a big fan base. I'm really honored to be able to represent the United States Air Force, and all the people that I've met and have supported me from day one. They're still supporting me now, and obviously that fan base grew. I went to Stillwater and met a lot of awesome new fans, and created even more of a wrestling environment. More of the time, I would say, wrestling and going on the streets. It's a wrestling town. You go everywhere, and they're just like, you go to Walmart, you go anywhere, a gas station, you're like, oh, great match last week, So Colorado Springs isn't much of a wrestling town, but on base, on campus, seeing all the guys, having their support. A lot of them showed up today, and they were there to celebrate with me. I think it's just as much, the Air Force's national championship as was Oklahoma State's, because if I didn't go to Air Force Academy and get that foundation built, I wouldn't be standing here right now telling you that I'm a national champion.
Next question from third row.
Wyatt, Clay Sauerteig, Gettysburg Times. You talked about the importance of mentality. You're in the room now where you're coached by an Olympic and world champion. You have an assistant who's a world champion. How big are they in terms of the confidence and the mindset and knowing what it takes to get it done at that level?
Yeah, I think it's having a high level of trust. When they tell me something, sometimes they feel a different way. It's better to just shut up, and they probably know what they're talking about. So in some of those situations where, I'm out there, the jitters are going, Coach Taylor just looks at me. He's like, hey, relax. You've trained for this. You're ready. You're prepared. You're the man. And really just, I trust him. He's been telling me the same things from the week after that, the week after he called me and asked me to be a cowboy, before I even started training in Stillwater, he just sent me these texts. He just say, Wyatt Hendrickson, national champion. Wyatt Hendrickson, national champion. Wyatt Hendrickson, 25 national champion. He's been doing that all season. So just those little things he's been putting in my head is, he's been consistent, and he's believed in me as well as everyone else on the training staff. And, just when I'm in there and we're training, it's really just everything that Coach Taylor and the guys told me to do, I was willing to do it because I want to be a national champion. I was willing to do whatever it took, no matter how many hours, no matter how many extra practices, no matter what it took.
Any additional questions from Wyatt? We have one in the front row.
Evan Smith, Daily Collegian. Just a couple of moments that in the mats that added to the overall moment. First, when you walked out, Gable Stevenson kind of walked up to you. Can you talk about that, and also how much did having the President of the United States sitting Matt's side add to the experience?
Yeah, that's my commander in chief right there, baby. I was really excited to have him here, but going out there, I was pretty focused, and I noticed when I was walking up on the mat, he was like kind of walking over to me to say something, and he talked about that he was an Olympic champion. He's walked with that flag around his shoulders, and so I just took it as respect. He's obviously been an Olympic champion, and I was going up against Olympic champion. I wasn't doing that in any way or shape or form to mock him. I'm proud of my service and what I've done and what I'll continue to do. So that's the real reason I wore the flag as well. I've already explained that we're one nation under God at the end of the day. So.
Any further questions for Wyatt? We do have one from Scott. Then we'll get you after that.
You transferred from Air Force to Oklahoma State. Were there any other schools that you considered?
Yes, there were a couple different schools I considered. I knew there was a short window to choose what teams. I did actually look at going to Minnesota, and they did mention Gable might be coming back, and when I was looking at colleges, I was looking what was the best fit for me and my future, and I always knew there was a chance that Gable could maybe come back, and I welcomed that challenge. I wasn't willing to back down from any battle, but I also looked at Michigan, but. Coach Taylor was one of my biggest role models when I was a kid. I remember watching him in the national finals in the basement with my dad. So whenever I got that call, it was pretty unreal. It was a really special time because there were so many great schools. I was like, I don't really know where to go. I was like, God, just give me a sign. And within 24 hours, I'm getting a call from David Taylor. I'm like, oh, okay. I wrestled with Coach Taylor. The beginning of the season. He'd usually get a couple takedowns on me, but towards the end of the season, I got a couple pounds, and he didn't like wrestling me anymore. So that was pretty sweet. Connor Doucette, Luke Serber, all those guys helped train me and be a national champion.
Our final question will come from Scott.
Yeah, along those lines, how would you describe the program that Coach Taylor is building, and where do you see it going forward?
Yeah, I think it's important to not show up and try to strip everything out of the program and rebuild it. He really did a good job at see what's going well, see what can be improved. And, I think we're taking it one step at a time. Rome wasn't built in a day. And, this is his first year back. We did place in the top 3, but we got higher goals looking forward. I know the next group of guys we're going to be bringing in, they're going to be absolute hammers. And, if they want to be a national champion, they're going to have all the tools at Oklahoma State they're going to need to be a national champion.
Wyatt, we do have a bonus question from back of the room.
Bonus, let's go.
Hey, Wyatt. My name is Mike. I'm from Win Magazine. I'm also retired Air Force, so super excited to see you win this.
Thank you for your service.
What is your AFSC, and are you considering 20 years, like once you get to that stage?
Absolutely. So I'm an acquisitions officer. Doesn't sound super fancy, but it's a little bit of the finance stuff. I get to buy some new stuff for the Air Force, buy some planes. But right now I'm the WCAP program, and so it's a 1-for-1. I'm planning on being this for 3 more years. And so I'll still have that 5-year commitment of being an acquisitions officer. But from the very beginning, I knew I wanted to make the military my career, which is obviously why I chose the Air Force Academy. I was looking at more than wrestling. I was looking at, my career goals, my life goals, and I could accomplish all those at the Air Force Academy. Wrestling the Big 12, getting a world-class education, and being a part of something bigger than myself. So I'll wrestle for 3 more, and then I'll do my 5. I'm planning on staying for 20. Yes, so I'm planning on making a career out of it, but. As soon as I'm done wrestling and doing my required commitment, it'll be about 9 years, but I'm planning on, if it's not broken, it doesn't need to be fixed.
That's a great way to end it. Congratulations, Wyatt Hendrickson of Oklahoma State, your 2025 national champion, the heavyweight champion for 2025. Congratulations.
Subject. Okay.